And while we are making those calls across the country, we're kind of in the West with that Texas game happening. Let's keep it out west though. Boise State and UNLV was another such kind of game that really did surprise me. This game did happen before the shooting on the UNLV campus, and we said at the beginning of the podcast, our hopes and prayers are with that UNLV campus as they try to heal from that tragedy. But going back to the football field, Boise State, you want to talk about a team that could have certainly fallen apart. Boise State fired their coach in the middle of the season, very middle of the season. And when you have a dramatic coaching change like that, that's the kind of coaching change that you see where that could make or break your season. It's definitely a fork in the road. But to the credit of really the Boise State players, they bought into the interim coach, Spencer Danielson. I would imagine he would have a real shot of getting that interim tag removed, given what he was able to accomplish in the month of November. Boise State, man, them Broncos now riding a 4-game winning streak. They win by a final score of 44-20 against UNLV. Technically a road game. I know they're in NFL Stadium, but UNLV actually does play their home games at Allegiant Stadium. And I understand it's a very beautiful stadium. I certainly don't mind that whatsoever. So love to see that. They did it behind their dynamic quarterback, Taylen Green. Taylen Green was somebody that did just about everything, threw for 2 touchdowns, and then also ran for a couple of touchdowns to go with it as well. Taylen Green, very dynamic player. I think he did answer the transfer portal, so I don't know if he's playing in the bowl game. But Taylen Green does lead Boise State to a Mountain West championship. So where does Boise State go from here? Boise State, they will be going to the LA Bowl out west, a de facto road game. They're taking on UCLA, who obviously is also in Los Angeles as well. Coming from that Pac-12 been a very competitive conference this season. But shout out to UNLV. I know this is not the result that you are certainly looking for when you're going into your very first Mountain West title game ever. But at the same time, this is a very good season for UNLV. To be on a verge of a 10-win season, that's an incredible season. You can't beat that. You absolutely love to see that. A program that, could be an interesting player in the NIL game, seeing that you have the Sin City literally in your backyard. It'll be interesting to see how UNLV handles that in terms of an NIL collective standpoint. I'm really curious about that. But big reason that UNLV lost this game. It's just that they couldn't stop a nosebleed, and they didn't generate enough offense on their own. Not only is it prevalent on the scoreboard, but if you dive deeper into the stats, Boise State was able to outgain UNLV 527-298. That is a very significant mismatch. When you look at it from that perspective, Boise State was also able to run the ball for 300 yards. They were running all over that UNLV front seven. UNLV did not have any answers whatsoever. And UNLV, to their credit, they fought in this game as long as they could. They cut it to as close as 31-20, but Boise State was able to answer with 13 unanswered points in the second half, and that propels Boise State to that Mountain West championship. Now, some things of note, the announced crowd at that Mountain West championship game is 31,473, which doesn't sound like a lot when you're seeing the numbers that Power 5 schools bring in all the time, but it does set in a record for the largest crowd at a Mountain West title game. The previous high was back in 2013 when 31,316 people showed up for Utah State when they played against Fresno State in that same Mountain West Championship game roughly a decade ago. That was the conference's first ever championship game, because before 2013, Mountain West did not have a conference championship game because they did not have more than 12 teams or more. That was just a thing back then for those of you that haven't been paying attention to college football in a long time. Now, even though UNLV is not going to experience a bowl game or not the opportunity to be a champion per se in the Mountain West, they're going to get a bowl game. I don't know where that come from. They actually don't have to travel too terribly far, all things considered. They're going to go down to Phoenix, Arizona, and they're going to play Kansas in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, and it's going to be an interesting game. Kansas is going to be heavily favored for bowl spread perspectives. You don't see any spreads like more than 3 possessions during bowl season. You rarely see that. Kansas is an 11.5-point favorite, but this should be an interesting game. But I'm really curious to see what happens in this one. This could be a very high-scoring affair between Kansas and UNLV, but hey, UNLV, they still have a chance, even though they are running a 2-game losing streak, to go out, beat Kansas, who Kansas is resurging as a football program themselves, could be setting themselves up very nicely in the new landscape that is the Big 12. And UNLV gets that 10-win season and set themselves up as, being one of the top dogs moving forward in this NIL and transfer portal era. It's definitely a thing to watch out for in the bowl season. An underrated bowl game, in my opinion.